This is Dateline News and Conversation. My guest tonight is an old friend. He's been here many times before. Dean Henderson. Dean, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Regis. Good to talk again. It's been a while.
So, Dean, there's a lot's happening. Um, you got Donald Trump lying through his teeth with a straight face, saying he's not going to sell any more weapons to Ukraine, but he's going to sell weapons to NATO, which can then send them to Ukraine. Now, how stupid do you have to be not to see through that? That he owns this war. And then we take a look at what Trump is doing to aid and abet Netanyahu with the genocide in Gaza. And if that's not enough, he's sending 4,000 Marines off the coast of Venezuela to take out Maduro. Now, Venezuela, to me, is not a flashpoint, but Gaza, Israel, and the United States there and in Ukraine is a flashpoint. In fact, one of those two locations could be the shot heard round the world. Dean, from where you're sitting, how are you feeling? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, it's all correct. I mean, and I feel like they got. I mean, whatever people thought or whatever. I gave him a chance. I guess I shouldn't have. I guess you take a guy at his word and give him a chance. You don't want to have the Trump derangement syndrome, and I gave him a chance, but he did. He just lied about everything. He lied. There's so many lies, and they're still lying. And it just feels like to me, like Regis, we're at a point now. Here's what it is: we're at a point now where it's just like right before COVID, the COVID scam. The stock market's ready to crash. Okay, the real estate market in this country is ready to crash. BlackRock built a lot of houses to rent in the 2000 and teens and deliberately inflated the housing market, the rent market. That's the driver of inflation in this country. It's nothing else but just greedy landlords, greedy people building houses, trying to get suckers to buy them. But so last time that happened was 2019. That's why I personally sold my farm in Missouri because I saw the real estate market was going to crash, right? And it did for a while. And Wall Street was on it was wobbly, and the central banks opened the discount windows, and they were loaning money to Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan at like 14-15% to keep them from going belly up. And then COVID was sprung on us, and it was there's a lot of course reasons, a lot of factors. There's depopulation, there's the introduction of 5G, there's just microchipping people with this crap, whatever it is, this nanotechnology inside us, mRNA. But the biggest reason for the COVID-19 to me was just an economic rescue, a way to extend their Ponzi scheme another 10 years, another or 5 years. As it turns out, maybe it's 6 years because here we are, and it's right on the edge. But it's a Ponzi scheme, so you have to convince people that these stock market, these shares in these companies are actually worth these crazy values. You have to convince people to pay $300,000 for a shack in a small town America, where it's worth like 20,000, probably, really, actually. So we have this kind of hyperinflation driven by which they had to induce because we were looking at massive deflationary depression in 2019. So from an economic standpoint, which really, honestly, it's all that matters. I mean, you can take all the moral platitudes out. You could take all the genocidal barbarians in Israel out, and you can take the Ukrainian dictator who's told what to do by the city of London out, and you can just get it all down to economics, all down to greed, all down to profits, and so what as we've talked about, I think before, they fell back on the old war machine model. When the COVID-19 fourth industrial revolution failed, when we rebelled and we rose up and led by, I'd say, the Canadian truckers probably more than anyone else, But a lot of us here and a lot of us everywhere stood up and said, no, we're not going to have this shit, or you're going to have a revolution on your hands. Get the fuck out of our lives, our homes. And by the way, I love what Bobby Kennedy Jr. is doing at HHS. I love what he's doing. I wish we had 200 Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s to run every branch of this government, but he's the only one who does anything good. And Tulsi Gabbard, she tries to do things good. She's come out and said, oh, the deep state is running the whole intelligence apparatus. She came out and said Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons. And when she did that, she was sidelined, and Trump sided with who? British intelligence. Oh, surprise. Israeli intelligence. Oh, surprise. So now we're getting to where who actually runs things, who actually runs Trump, who actually whatever. I mean, Epstein's probably hiding out in Israel and they're holding that over his head. That's what they do. That's what they do. They get something on you and then they control you. And so, of course, they control Trump. Not to mention the fact that he's bailed out by the Rothschilds on his Taj Mahal casino. Not to mention the fact that that involved Resorts International, one of the biggest drug trafficking fronts in the Caribbean ever, run by Meyer Lansky, and somehow connected to Trump, somehow connected to these people, these Israeli whatever they are, Zionists, yeah, bankers, bloodlines. Okay, they're bloodlines is what they are. We know what they are. So at the very top, what I think we're going to war. I'm not optimistic. I see Trump. I mean, you can criticize Trump all you want, and I will, but I'm going to criticize Europe a lot more because Europe is driving this train and I wonder why. Because that's where the bloodlines live. That's why. Because that's where the city of London is. That's why. And they control America, and they have for a long time. And so they're saying, look, no, we're gonna have a NATO like force in Ukraine. Yeah, we're going to supply the weapons. We'll buy them from you. So much better. But they're driving this train. They're driving this crazy train, the Europeans, and they have been for some time now. And it's just all about hatred of Russia. And how do you get people to hate Russia? Oh, I know. You use Trump as a red herring. Use Trump as associate him with Putin, just like you associate him with, all side liberals hate Russia. All side liberals love the mainstream media. All side liberals in America love the CIA, the FBI, the deep state because they oppose Trump. So Trump is just a giant psyop. He's made people crazy, progressive people crazy to where they can't even formulate a policy. All they do is react to Trump. That's all they do. And on the other side, he's got a cult following of a lot of honestly a lot of white men who look at him like a daddy figure and who didn't maybe have a good dad. And so they're just in a cult, and he can do. You could find out he was a pedophile. You could find out, you could shake hands with the devil, and they would still adore him. So both sides are nuts. That's the idea. I mean, that's the whole point, is to sort of like just wash out politics, just confuse the roles, invert the inversion of reality to where now liberals are warmongers. It's not the first time, by the way. I mean, in the Civil War, the Democrats were the ones, that ran slavery and that supported slavery, that wanted to annex Mexico and the Caribbean, and enslave that region as well. And there's been times it's not like new, but so both of these parties are just out to lunch, and they're both controlled by the same entity, the bloodlines. So what they're going to do is they're going to make it look like, yeah, Trump is doing what he's doing with Putin or Vance or whatever and trying to make friends. But at the same time, it's not going to prevail. What's going to prevail, I'm afraid, my friend, is war. And it's
I want to stop you right there. You talked about war, and you're feeling that it's imminent. I have been feeling for some time now that we are on a trajectory to all-out war between NATO countries, maybe not all of them, but certainly UK, France, Jesus, even Norway, for God's sake, the Baltic states, Germany. There's an expression, see this pacem, this pacem. And another part of that's a twist, is that if you want war, work for peace. See this bellum, this pacem. And I'm saying if you want war, you prepare for war. And that's what they're doing. Dean, we're so close, right? I mean, I've said it at the top of the show. Ukraine is a flashpoint right now. This could represent not just the shot hurt around the world, Dean, but the spark that ignites the unthinkable. Your thoughts on that?
I agree. And, it's no coincidence that I think, as I understand it right now, Putin's in Shanghai meeting with the Shanghai Cooperation Council. Well, I think they call it the Shanghai Cooperation Organization now. And that they've added Iran to that group, and they've added several countries, and India is part of that now. And China obviously is part of that, helped organize it. So are all the stands. So that's growing. Pakistan, look at Turkey coming out yesterday saying they're not going to trade with Israel anymore. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gets your government overthrown. So they're putting their neck out now, and you can see it lining up. You can see the sides lining up. And honestly, it's not looking good for the West, if you ask me, because we're outgunned, we're outmanned, we're out technology even, and we don't have the will to fight like these people do. People are sick and tired of this Bretton Woods world order that put the West in front of everybody else, and they didn't get it was fraud. It was just fraud, and it still is. And the IMF and the World Bank and all this, just this apparatus they set up. That we went from slavery to colonialism to neocolonialism, and that's where we sit. And so nothing's changed for the people of the global South. They're still in poverty. There hasn't been any development. There hasn't been any fairness. There hasn't been anything. And now Trump, the reason he's doing this tariffs could be a good thing. Tariffs are normally things that like a socialist or communist government would do, right? But in Trump's case, I think what he's doing is he's targeting small business for destruction in America, because Walmart can take tariffs. Walmart can, take some losses. They can survive it. But what about mom and pop that import a few things from wherever, and all of a sudden they're having to pay more? So it's perfect. You destroy small business. Look at his budget, $100 increase in defense spending, slashes Medicaid, slashes food stamps for poor people. This is just another giant transfer of wealth to the rich. That's all it is. Waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. But what about the Pentagon? I guess we're not worried about waste, fraud, and abuse there. Oh, so I mean, it's just he's a first class liar. This guy, and he's just being controlled. I mean, obviously he's being told what to do. And what they're doing is they're just doing another grab. They're just doing another resource grab. And, Russia, China, India, the global South, Indonesia, South Africa, they're sick of it. Brazil, sick of it. So many people sick of it. And all these promises, Trump, he'll never start a war. And MAGA thought so too. And his whole MAGA coalition is falling apart. I mean, not the whole thing, but there are people like Tucker Carlson who now Trump's calling Tucker Carlson, crazy. And Tucker Carlson's interviewing the president of Iran. The president of Iran's like, well, we really don't want to pursue a nuclear weapon because we believe in God, and God doesn't like nuclear weapons. And the West looks at him and they're like, oh yeah, right, because we're so cynical and we're so full of like the devil, really, honestly. And Iran is right to a lot of degree. We really are the great Satan. Okay, we've become the great Satan, and not just our government. We've internalized it. Okay, people have internalized it. We really think Americans, most of them, really think they have the right to tell Iran what kind of government it can have, or to tell Russia who it can trade with. I mean, how pompous and arrogant and full of shit that is. And that's where we're at. So it's not just the government of the United States that's gone mad. It's the people of the United States that have gone mad. And it's really hard to live here right now. I'll just be honest with you. It's getting harder to live here. You did a good thing getting the hell out of here. But I mean, the bills come and due, and people can say what they want. And then in the same interview, you might have seen that interview with Tucker Carlson with the Iranian president. They asked him because it's always propaganda here, and so there's these Iranian sleeper cells that are just waiting, and Tucker asked the Iranian president about that. And he says, that's the first I heard of that. That's kind of weird, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But see, we're such like demonic, satanic people that it's just like one of the chapters in my last book. It's called First Strike with Tico. And that's where we're at. let's bomb everybody before they bomb us. Even though there's no, it's just like Israel. I mean, they represent that more than anything. I mean, they're barbarians, and that's their whole strategy. Oh well, there was one Hamas camera on a hospital. Let's take it out before they see us. And so what if we kill 300 people? That's just a Machiavellian bargain, and these are doubles. We're dealing with doubles now. So it's become like a spiritual battle. I feel like on this earth to where yeah, and if you're American and you stand with, you're gonna get pummeled. Like you just people are gonna just, yeah, they're gonna, what is wrong with you? You believe in God? Come on, we gotta bomb these people right away. And then yeah, every time there's a peace talk, and like the last time Trump talked to Putin, and then Europe talked to Zelensky, and right, all of a sudden magically it pops up all these people on the street corners with Ukrainian flags. Of course, it's all funded by the CIA. But they keep reinforcing these things. This morning on all the talk shows, going after Bobby Kennedy Jr. Wouldn't interview anybody from HHS because he's just cleaned house at the CDC. They're coming out next month with a study that's probably going to show autism linked to vaccines. And still these people on the Sunday talk shows, they won't even interview that side, but they're still interviewing all these people who just discredit, who just say, oh yeah, we're going to ruin this, they're going to politicize the science. Well, they're the ones that politicize the science. That's what devils do. They invert reality. They're the ones that politicize it. They're the ones that took money from Pfizer. They're the ones that handed over our healthcare system to big pharma and big hospital and big insurance. And that's not science. Okay. So, they just lie. They just lie. They lie. They lie. These people. And it's really Americans, most part, have internalized those lies and believe those lies. And that's the really sad part. But that's why they did the social media, the hive mind, all these other things we've talked about, where you basically force people into these camps that everybody thinks the same. Everybody thinks the same. And yeah, and if you think different, it's really like, man, I mean, it's like it's just continuing. So we'll see. But on the other hand, I have a lot of faith that I believe Iran pretty much kicked Israel's ass. I believe Hamas is kicking Israel's ass. Yeah, they've killed 65,000 people, but because they're just inbreds and they're barbarians and they're Satanists, whatever. But it doesn't mean they're winning the war. They're not. It doesn't mean, when they have to go bombing all these countries, and how many presidents can you take out in the Middle East in 3 months or whatever? And yesterday we find out just virtually the whole cabinet of Yemen was just killed by these fuckers. And that's desperation, okay? Let's just keep that in mind. And also in NATO, that's desperation. Europe's desperate. Again, things are on the edge. The economy's on the edge. They know this. People are uneasy too. Americans, Europeans. There's a lot of upheaval in even the UK is probably right now. There's a lot of people on the streets in the UK. There's a lot of dissent. There's a lot of people angry. And who'd have thunk it in the UK, we're the epicenter of power. But you know what? It kind of stands to reason because throughout history, that's exactly where revolutions have occurred, the epicenters of power, including in Egypt under the pharaohs, including in the city of London many times before, including the Roman Empire, the epicenter, and here in Washington now. But so it's not like there's not any hope. It's not like God's gonna reward the devil and let him win it. But boy, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of suffering, and then just a lot of exposing like what these things are capable of and what they are. And because I'm not going to say who they are, I'm going to say what they are. And people are seeing it. You can't ignore it. I mean, if you ignore 30,000 babies dead in Gaza, and now if you ignore like 500 just dead of malnutrition, I mean, you're going to go to hell, my friend. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, and you're not even my friend. Okay. If you believe that, I mean, if you can go along with that, yeah, I don't care what party you're with. I don't care about anything else about you. So, and I think most people are not down with that. And most people are not okay with what's going on in Israel. So they've never been less popular in the world. And the United States probably has never been less popular in the world either. So public opinion is still on our side. It's still on the side of justice. Amazingly, after all the mind control, after all the money they spend to lie to people and push those lies down our throats, amazingly, I still feel at that level, there's hope. But for the United States and for Europe, yeah, I doubt it. I just think, you know, we're heading to, and I got my car's gassed up. I'm ready to drive to Mexico. I can get there in 24 hours. Okay, so you know, I'm hanging because of my cat. It's just that simple. I can't take my cat on a 3,000 whatever mile flight to Moscow. I can't take my cat where I really want to go. I can't. I just can't, because I'm not going to let him get vaccinated. He's 13 years old. I'm not. He'll die. He'll die on the plane. It's too long of a flight, and I'm not going to let him stick him with a fucking needle.
So, Dino,
So I'm staying here, and that's why I'm staying here, and that's what. Otherwise, I'd be gone. I'd be so fucking gone. Are you kidding me? Wow, right? But I got to look after my family, and he's my family. My cat's do this to me, man. Sorry. But he's, you know, we've been through, but yeah, so, you know, there's a reason he's keeping me here. There's a reason he's keeping me here. I trust God, and I'm meant to be one of those people that has to stay here and continue to try to push against it, you know, because there's not enough people doing that. But no, I'm not optimistic. When I say I'm not optimistic, I'm not optimistic for the United States. I'm not optimistic for the West. But in a bigger picture, that's a good thing. It has to happen. It has to happen. The BRICS countries have, and the Shanghai Cooperation Council countries, they have to be allowed to have a life, for Christ's sakes. You know, and they haven't had that ever since, well, Jesus. I mean, long time. So yeah, it's again, it's one of those paradoxes where, you know, there's hope, but then there's despair, and you know, you have to reconcile those things, and you have to yeah, but mainly you just have to stay with God, and you just have to keep telling the truth. There's
Dana,
wherever it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter really.
I want to follow up on a couple of things that you said, and I want to leave the topic of hope to the end, because I do think there is hope, and we'll discuss that. You've already alluded to it.
Yeah.
But in terms of people waking up, you know, this Epstein affair is not going away.
No.
That has, I think, turned the heads of a lot of the MAGA people,
Yeah.
who are basically traditional. Many of them maybe are, you know, Christians.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they're Christian Zionists. I don't know.
Some of
But
them. Yeah.
I know that heads have been turned, and Trump got elected only because there were a lot of people in the middle who would not vote Democrat for Kamala
Right.
Harris.
Right.
And these people are all concerned. And this, I call it the Epstein event, is not going away.
No,
Trump
no
is
way.
so up to his bottom lip in horse manure that he can't wiggle out of it. I wonder what your thoughts are on this Epstein thing. I mean, they've lied about that. Pamela Bondi said she had a stack of Epstein files on her desk, and then she meets with Trump and says, you know, your name is on this thing a few hundred times.
Right.
And then she reverses it. Oh, no, there's no list. I mean, again, Dean, how stupid do you have to be to buy that stuff?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
briefly,
Right.
give me your thoughts on whether or not you think this Epstein thing is is going to be a serious I don't want to say motivate, I don't know what to call it, but a serious factor in the undoing of what's happening, at least in the hands of Trump.
Right. Well, the one really good thing that's happened, I'm sure you heard, but Ro Khanna, who's a Democrat congressman from California, he ran Bernie Sanders' campaign. You know, pretty good guy. I agree with him on a lot of stuff. He's one of the more progressive, outspoken people in the Democratic Party. One of the few anymore, actually, that thinks straight about stuff. You know, for example, Trump said we're going to take a 10% share of Intel, and he said, "Yeah, I agree with that." Oh wow, I agree with Trump. Oh my God, you must be evil. But he did, and it's true. And again, socialist thing to do. It's like, we're giving you all this taxpayer money, and so you're gonna give us 10% of your company. So more of that. But anyway, Ro Khanna, Democrat, California, and Thomas Maxey, Republican, Kentucky, who lives in an RV in the parking garage of some congressional building. Literally lives in an RV. has a lot of he's really got a lot of character, and he's Republican. So, I don't agree with some of his stuff, but whatever. I don't have to. And he doesn't have to agree with me either. But the whole point is this is the first time I've seen like a bipartisan, anything for I can't even remember the last time. Honestly, I can't even remember the last time I saw people working across the aisle. But these two guys are working together to make sure this Epstein thing doesn't go away. So they're subpoenaing files, and that's why Congress was sent home early by Johnson, the Speaker of the House from Louisiana, who's a Trump loyalist and a coward and probably a pedophile too. He sent him home because he just wanted it to go away. But it's not going to go away because they're going to come back, and these two guys are going to pursue it. And I think because it's bipartisan and because it's ironic, right? The Democrats all of a sudden are listening to this, right? Because before we talked about Jeffrey Epstein, you conspiracy theorist, come on. Well, now that Trump's being attacked for it, let's hear about Epstein, they say. So pretty funny. But because of that dynamic, that I'm sure is a God thing and put before us. And there's so many God things that we're just too stupid to pick up on mostly. Like there's openings all the time to fix this thing, and we just don't do it because we're cowards. But so anyway, my answer to that question is if there's enough people who aren't cowards, then it won't go away. And in that case, yeah, it's big trouble for Trump. Also, you have to keep in mind that it may very well be that he's being blackmailed by Israeli intelligence, and yeah, that Epstein's alive in Israel right now as we speak, and he wasn't murdered, and that Maxwell was given an upgraded prison cell, which I mean, again, that's one of those things. If you can't see how corrupt that is, Trump sends his Justice Department person in, and the next day she gets an upgraded prison cell. Well, that's so she keeps her mouth shut, obviously, but it doesn't matter because my view has always been, Epstein's the Mossad guy who goes around and gets the dirt on politicians, and so that they can be kept in line to the City of London's goals. Maxwell is British intelligence because British intelligence is the superior in that relationship, always has been, always will be over Mossad. And if you want to dissect what's going on in Israel, it has nothing to do with Jews. Again, it has to do with the City of London bankers, and it has to do with control of that region through a greater Israel, which again has nothing to do with Jews. They're the Hofjuden, okay? They're the people that have always helped the bankers. That's why they're evil. But you want to see some real evil? You won't see it. You won't see that because they're going to sit there in the City of London and hide and let the Israelis do the heavy lifting. Let the United States do the heavy lifting. I only hope this. I only hope Vladimir Putin and the people that in the Shanghai Council, I hope they're smart enough to know who's running this thing. That's all. So if you're going to start, if trouble starts, the first bomb should fall in the City of London. That's just that simple. Then the next one should fall in Israel. And if the United States comes in, I can't blame them. Whatever happens, hey, that's our. If Trump is that much of a, I can't say it here, but it's the equivalent of a whore. Then so be it. That's just the way it's going to be. But I just hope that those leaders are smart enough to know that. And honestly, if they're not, I don't really trust them. So we're going to see how that plays out. And that jury's still out on a lot of these things. Okay, people, I know this. I don't know shit. Okay, the older I get, the less I know. So do I know for sure that Putin's not in the pocket of these people? No, not really. Do I know that China? No, not really. Do I know that they're all being sponsored? No, I really don't know that. But it sure doesn't look like it. And let's just pray it's not. Let's just pray they don't have them all in the bag. And let's just pray that when the G20 is formed and maybe BRICS takes power, that the same like Goldman Sachs and Rothschilds and Rockefellers aren't in there owning all the shares of that bank and saying, "Oh, we promise you a prosperous future while we destroy the West, but we're still going to survive because people weren't smart enough to see who was really running things." That's what's important. That remains the most important thing, which is why I wrote the books I wrote, which is why I write what I write about. Because all this other stuff, honestly, it's just window dressing. It's a movie. It's designed to outrage people and so outraged and offended, and it doesn't matter. What matters is big picture. Let's identify these bloodlines. Let's go after them, okay? And hopefully someday United States, Russia can work together to do that. If we have these honest governments that really do represent the people, that's what will have to happen. Tulsi Gabbard's ready to do that. I think she's ready to do that as the director of national intelligence. But she's being kept in line for now. For now. But honestly, things are. I mean, if again, look at the long view. Look at that last 8,500 years of enslavement. Look, things are getting worse for the working class. Um, it's really bad. I mean, people can't afford things. People can't afford to live right now. There's going to be there's a lot of people already suffering. There's going to be a lot more suffering. But on the other hand, we've never had an HHS. We've never had a Tulsi Gabbard run DCI, and we've never talked about these things in the newspapers. We've never talked about autism causing, being caused by vaccinations. I mean, certain websites did. The Children's Environmental Defense Fund did that. Kennedy ran, but in the government, people in the government doing that's new. People in the government, in the head of intelligence talking about deep state, that's new. So we just have to keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Again, a paradox of what's going on. More suffering, more poverty, more injustice. Hard to watch Israel, hard to even wow. But on the other hand, there's this awareness that sort of just keeps seeping in and keeps creeping in. And, I'm not saying it's a be all end all. And I'm not saying we're going to prevail. It might just go away. It might just be a passing phase, and they'll run Kennedy out, and they'll run Gabbard out, and they'll replace them with more neocons. Also, the arrest warrant for John Bolton. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. They searched his home. He's there's not a bigger warmonger in the United States than that guy. I mean, he was the guy that told us that Iraq had yellow cake uranium. He was the guy at the United Nations lobbying for war against, I don't know, everybody. And he was Trump's national security advisor for a reason, because first administration of Trump, they told him who to go to. And at least that's happening. So again, that could just be, limited hangout, make it look good. Oh, we're doing something, and we're really not. And it probably is, but it's just all these cross currents, and we have to keep an open mind. And I think one of the really important things right now is just humility, just admitting that, look, we don't really know how this is all going to play out. Okay. All we can do is the best we can do as analysts, but we don't know. And I'm getting, frankly, really tired of kind of this conspiracy website crowd, because I don't know, that they think they know everything, and they don't. And they're just about as bad as the hive mind people on both sides, because, oh, it's for sure this is going to happen. You don't know that. You don't really know. And a lot of this is, isn't, objectivity is kind of a myth. Subjectivity is the nature of reality. Every situation is different. Okay. To me. And that's what the Indians would tell you. The Native Americans would tell you the same thing. It's like, you can't just say, monkeys always, do this and study monkeys. And then you claim you know it all about monkeys. Oh, we know all this about these monkeys. We know how they act. No, one monkey's going to act different than another monkey. Okay. You put a monkey in a lab in New York and you study it. You leave a monkey in an African jungle and study it with a hidden camera. They're going to act totally different. But that's not even acknowledged by this kind of present crown preconceived science bullshit. That's not science. It's not science at all. It's fraud. By the way, we all think now. We all think, oh, it's like this, it's like that, it's definitely like this. No, it's always like this. No, it's really not. That's not really the nature of reality. The nature of reality is things change. There's actors that can alter situations. These people are not omnipotent. They're not omnipotent. They can be defeated. They can have, some of them can have a change of heart even. Some of them could come clean and say, hey, I'm not doing this no more. I'm going to go with the good guys now. Fareed Zakaria, one of the biggest globalists I've ever come across, has a show on CNN. I watched the show this morning. I watched it last week. I watch it mostly because he's the mouthpiece of the Council on Foreign Relations. You want to know what's going to happen. Last week, he did a really good documentary called Disconnected about how social media has just destroyed us as people. And he broke it all down, how like men and women are being divided. And I mean, it was really good. It was the stuff I wrote in my second to last book, Nephilim Crown 5G Apocalypse. And I'm like, well, it's about time. But on the other hand, it's on CNN now. And people are really talking about this social media and how it's messing us up. So there's never a time when people can't be redeemed. And don't forget that, because that's really, that's a God thing. I mean, you can't ever give up on people. You can't ever give up on a country. You can't ever give up on change. Okay. It's just, if you do that, you become a reactionary. and you become just as bad as those two-party hive mind people if you're in that conspiracy crowd and you're just like, oh yeah, they control everything. We don't have a chance. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's why you keep going and you keep in the debate. You stay in the debate. You stay talking. You stay engaged. Because people do come around. The way it's worked in my life, I mean, yeah, I remember back in when the Gulf War was happening, 1990. Oh, Iraq's dangerous. They have all this. Oh, you're crazy to be against that war. What do you? And so for like 10 years, you're crazy. And then all of a sudden you're not crazy and everything you said comes true. Kind of like with social media now, and kind of like with these topics we're talking about in another 10 years. But for now, we're crazy. We're still crazy. And then they will never acknowledge you or say you were right, but they'll just kind of get quiet. And that's fine, whatever. But that's how change happens. That's how change happens. And it's just more extreme now because of social media. So now if you dissent, you're really hammered more than you used to be in the old days when it was like, well, yeah, people would attack you. Maybe they would attack you in the streets. Like my friend said the other day, wouldn't it be nice to go back to the days when a fist fight was okay? Nothing wrong with a fist fight. Better than shooting up a school, right? So that's how it is now. It's like, oh, this outrage, and it's just all cowardice, and it's just like hiding behind the internet, hiding behind the screen. You're not out in the streets. You're not engaging people. The other day, we go up to this thing in Lead, and they're doing this like CERN-like thing up in Lead, South Dakota, where it's 20 miles from me, and we're going to be the catcher's mitt for these idiots in Chicago who are going to fire these neutrinos down this tunnel that they're the Department of Energy is spending God knows how much money to build. Things could go wrong. I live here. So I went up there, and it's neutrino days, and it's right away, there's all this security, and you can tell they're looking out for people like me that might be showing up. A lot of security. And so right away, I was like, oh, yeah, this is what I thought this was going to be. And then one of the booths was this guy, Dakota Gold, they call it. So they're trying to put a gold mine up the canyon here. Beautiful spot. There's no way any mine should ever be put there. Pristine creek running through it. And I just went up to the guy, and they had these like gold nuggets, like these Hershey's gold nugget chocolates. And I just pretty much like reached my hand there, and I just took them all, and I just started eating them in front of the guy. And I was like, you know what? You're gonna have and I said, who owns this company? It's called Dakota Gold. Is there any South Dakota shareholders? He's like, oh, here, I'll show you. Because at that time, he still didn't know who I was. And so he busted out the list of shareholders. He's like, I'll show you who they are. It was BlackRock, Vanguard. There was no Dakota people on that board or with shares at all. And then when I pressed him, he's like, well, there's one guy. And he thought of this one old guy who had a few shares. And, oh, no, that guy has some shares. Yeah. I said, come on, dude. And I just said, like, look, you're going to have a fight in your hands. So I confronted him. In the person, not behind a fucking screen, hiding out. Like, this is what people do. They're cowards. This is making us cowards. This whole thing has made us cowards because we're not out in the streets no more. We're not talking to people no more, at least not in America. I don't know how it is anywhere else. But I don't feel like most people are doing that. And I feel like, you can talk really tough behind the screen, but try going out in the street and doing it where people spit on you, where people, you might get in a fist fight. So you better be ready. But like I said, better a fist fight than a school shooting. Why don't we go back to those days where people have some courage? I don't mind a fist fight every now and then. I mean, sometimes people need to get their ass kicked. Honestly, I did it when I was in second grade to bullies all the time. My dad taught me to do that, and it is the right thing to do. But that doesn't, make it right to go murdering people if you disagree with them. Okay, and I don't know how many liberals I've heard say, "Oh, Trump needs a bullet." Really? You want to talk that way? And then this tranny school shooter in Minneapolis comes out, and his biggest hatred is Trump, and he fucking goes in and he shoots a bunch of little kids at a church. So you think you're morally justified to say them kind of things? Look, if you're talking about a revolution and off with their heads, I'm down with that. But if you're just talking about Trump, just Trump, you're a coward. You're just a coward. Hiding behind the mainstream media, hiding behind the intelligence agencies, hiding behind everybody that's giving him the hard time. Then you're just a coward. You're not a real revolutionary because you're just a reactionary, and that's what these people are. They're just reactionary. They have no ideas that are on these hate Trump. That's all it is. So it's a psyop, and it's working for now. But there's signs that some liberals are kind of easing up on it. I feel like, and some MAGA people are also easing up on the cult thing. So let's just hope we can get back some sanity. But I think one of the biggest, well, we're going to look back at this time. We're going to realize that social media just it destroyed the minds of people. If we're alive to see it, if we're alive, if we're not just all dead because of it, you know.
So, Dean, I wonder if you agree, uh, and we'll try to end on this note. Uh, I think we're seeing an incredible power struggle, not by Democrats and Republicans, not by Trump, but by those people who are in control of it all. You and I, and you have repeatedly referred to the City of London. You've repeatedly referred to the Rothschilds, to the Zionists, who's controlling them. Now, you've been going on about what people have to do. Well, as I'm seeing it, I'm seeing massive protests in London,
Mhm.
massive protests in Paris and around France. I'm seeing protests in Germany against hardship, against this transfer of wealth, against inflation, against the lack of jobs, uh, bordering on not recession, but depression. So we're seeing it in different parts of the world.
Mhm.
People are feeling the pain and they're rising up.
Yeah.
And I see that as hope. And by the way, they're rising up in massive, nonviolent, peaceful protests, but they're getting the crap kicked out of them by the establishment, by the police, and Trump sending in the military.
Mhm.
But I see that as well, it's not a but. I see
Yeah.
that as hopeful. And you started talking about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, this huge meeting in Beijing. Putin was the first one there. The optics were unmistakable. I mean, those two reacted like longtime best friends,
Mhm.
smiles, handshakes. And then there's 27 other countries represented there for the next couple of days. Putin will be there for 4 days. There's an
Mhm.
entire Russian entourage there. Dean, this is how I see it, and I don't know if this is how you see it, but I sure hope that Russia, China, the BRICS, and the SCO represent the other side of this conflict of people who want to control the future order of the world. I I see that for me as the only ray of hope. And I'll finish my part on this. I think humanity owes President Putin an incredible debt of gratitude for not being provoked into bombing the hell out of Brussels, Berlin, the UK, and Washington, and avoiding a nuclear war. Your final thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, for sure. He's shown so much restraint. um, for sure. But yeah, I mean, Indonesia, add Indonesia to the list. You just mentioned, you know, there's big riots in Indonesia now. And it's all about, yeah, people are literally, people are, I mean, we have it bad here, but there's people starving now everywhere. And Africa's a mess. And I mean, it's all just, things are bad. Maduro's passing out AK-47s to everybody. What's that all about? I mean, well, they're being threatened. The revolution is being threatened, just like they threaten a revolution. They always do, and that's what they do. That's what the billionaire class does. That's what they can't have. They can't have revolutions, and yet they keep happening. And yet they keep happening. They declared communism dead, and yet African countries continue to be communists or Marxists, and they elect these people. And they throw the French out of Mali, and they throw the French out of Niger, and they throw the Americans out of Central African Republic. And you know, there's all this stuff that goes on that we don't hear about, and unless you're paying attention, unless you're looking for it. There's the fact that you know RT reported that Trump agreed to a Chinese peacekeeper force in Ukraine. That's an idea that would diffuse this thing. Um, but see, the Zelensky and his City of London people aren't going to agree with that. And they say Putin, you know, the whole line here is like, oh, Putin's rejected the West's overture for peace. Again, just a lie, an inversion. He did not reject that. He is simply not going to allow, I mean, the whole reason he invaded was because they were going to become part of NATO. They were going to, you know, and they're well, man, they're run by Nazis mainly is the reason. But yeah, I agree. People are up. It's gonna get. There's gonna be more and more protests. There's gonna be more and more desperate people, and that's always what the capitalists they don't understand. They don't understand that if you get too greedy, you're going to cause a revolution, and that's still the case. I don't care. You can tell me communism's dead. You can give up on humanity. You can say, you know, there is a lot of cowardice in the West, but look what's happened. There's when people get desperate, things happen. When people don't eat, that's just that simple. It's not that they're, you know, any better people than anybody else. It's just when your kid doesn't eat a bowl of rice but once a day, you might have thoughts about AK-47s and that's probably what it's going to come down to. I'm afraid. See, that's what I'm just peaceful protests. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. But I think it's going to come down to maybe we'll be glad when Putin bombs those places you mentioned. Unfortunately, I don't want to see that. I'm not rooting for that. But I just these knuckleheads. They just think they can just run things and they can just run us and they can just kill babies in Gaza and they can just get away with it and they can, you know, they can bomb oil refineries in Russia and just get away with it. And I don't know how you're going to peacefully protest that. And I don't know how you know, without big guns like China, like Russia, others. Look at the Houthis, man. They're not done. They're not done with Israel. Just because you kill our government, Hezbollah, they're not done. The resistance never dies. It just never dies. You know, certain people die, leaders die, but as long as you're going to be unjust, as long as there's injustice on this scale in the world, revolution is never going to die. And all you're doing is killing people and making it stronger when you do, because it just pisses more and more people off. And they just don't understand that because they're not very smart, Regis. We got to remember, they're not very smart. They're inbred to the point where they can't even think straight. And they have to hire these hot shit advisors out of Harvard, but they're not very smart either because they don't live in the real world and they don't have to make a living. And they never had a shovel in their hand and they never had a boss yelling insults at them. And they never had to cross a border in a river overnight with their kids to save their lives. So they don't understand. They don't understand the nature of reality. Okay. And that's, again, my last book, Royal Bloodline with Tico, The Great Remembering. That's the central thesis. They don't understand the nature of reality. And that's going to catch up to them. Reality's reality. Reality's not positive, negative. It's not optimistic, pessimistic. It's just reality. It's just reality. And reality is always going to win. You know, it's always going to win out. And that, to me, that's where God lies. God lies in reality. It's just that simple. It's not some woo-woo. Oh, God's up in heaven and I want to save my soul and go up into the sky and be with the sky beings, the Anunnaki, yeah, whatever. No, it's God is reality. If you accept reality, you're with God. If you understand the nature of reality, you're a godly person. If you don't, you better start understanding it, because it's not going to change just because of what you think or what you even perceive. But it will change if you act, and it will change if enough people act, and it will change if enough people perceive in a collective consciousness kind of way. And that creates an energy, and that creates. So it's still all about the energy. It's still all about the awareness. It's still all about, look, acknowledge the fact that we've been ruled by a bloodline, one family rule, 8,500 years. They're not human. Get with the program, or we're all going to die. Get with the program, and we're not all going to die. Get with the program, and they'll go away. Get with the program, and we will have justice on this earth, no matter how. But if you continue to be scared and deny that and want to, I just want to talk about Trump and Biden or whatever. If you refuse to talk about these things, I can't understand at this point. Enough people have laid out what's going on for people to hear. And it's time for more and more people to start talking about these bloodline people and going after them and who they are and their names and their addresses and their phone numbers and where they live. Okay. Otherwise, yeah, just crawl in your hole and kiss your ass goodbye. And that's just the way it is.